Hello there. This is another topic of discussion that I'm going to discuss. Anyone else who is free to join in to this topic. Basically, any of my topics are free to join in. My topic is something that I've come across with a lot with people who find that I'm learning different foreign languages. Um, and this is whether or not a language is useful or useless. Sorry, excuse me. Um, anyway, uh, my viewpoint on this is, and I think a lot of polyglots on here would agree with me, there is, in my opinion, no such thing as a useless language. Now, if the language is a dead language, like Latin, for example, um, yeah, I would consider that, not to be as useful. I would find I would I would classify a useless language as something that's not spoken anymore. If it's spoken, then it's definitely still a useful language. Like for instance, Czech useful, Russian useful, Spanish useful, French useful, Arabic useful. Um, but languages that aren't spoken anymore, or languages that are more the classics that really aren't spoken, like ancient Greek, ancient Hebrew. Um, let's see what else. Never. All of the dead languages, I would say are, you know, not that. Um, they're good to learn, but you won't find many speakers. Yeah, you won't find many speakers of that former language. But as far as learning languages like French, Italian, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, Czech, Georgian, all those European languages and African languages, Urdu, and all that other stuff, those are still useful languages because there's a certain good amount of people who speak that language. Like, for instance, a few months ago, I was having a discussion with my uncle. He, I was telling him about my love for languages, and he was like, "Well, you really shouldn't be doing that because the only useful language you'll ever need is Spanish. Why learn any other language besides Spanish?" While he is correct that Spanish would be more useful in the United States as far as job opportunities and stuff like that, that's not the only useful language that's out there. And like I said before, to me, as long as there's a considerable, a lot amount of people who speak the language, it's still a very useful language. Like Russian, that's still very useful. Um, Czech, that's useful. Italian, useful. Spanish, very useful. French, useful. You know, even some Native American languages. Some of them are still spoken. You have Cherokee, that's still spoken, and other um, languages that Native American tribes use are still spoken. Like out west, you'll probably find a lot of things in Native American languages. And, and plus, Latin, for example, most people think of Latin as a dead language. I totally disagree. Latin is used by the Catholic Church. It's used very heavily. I would even not consider that a dead language. So, to think of something as a useless language, I really don't see why people would classify a language as useless. Because any language, as long as it has the potential to speak and communicate with other native speakers, then every language that can be spoken is useful. You know, unless you can't find any speakers, then you're out of luck. Then sure, it's a dead language, but and not useful. But if you can at least find speakers for it, that's still very useful if you can find speakers. So my question basically to the polyglot community is whether or not you have dealt with someone that is similar to my uncle, in which they think, well, we should only learn only one language because of economic reasons and because of other stuff, not just for the pure fun of learning a language. Like I said before, he says that he's open-minded, but he's closed-minded. I think, he only finds a language like Spanish to be useful only for job opportunities. And if I were to show him these, he would say, "Why do you have these? You just wasted a ton of money on two books you're never going to use." Well, that's not true, because a lot of people, especially in Europe, speak Russian, and plus Czech. It is useful. So my proposal is, my question, I should say, I'll rephrase that. My question is whether or not in your language studies of languages other than, say, Spanish, have you come across with anyone who is, against you learning that language, or question why you're learning that language? Because I've had this come across a lot in my life. I've been studying foreign languages ever since my sophomore year of high school, and I've had that question rise many times whenever I'm learning a certain language, whether people find it useful or not useful. So, to the polyglot community, you can make a video response if you want. What are your opinions as far as useful, non-useful languages?